Good afternoon. My name is Agnieszka Perlinska, and this is...
And I'm Chip Shackle.
Welcome to the official launch of The Conversation. Released exclusively on Amazon. I am so happy to see so many friends and so many new people in this room. Thank you so much for coming. First of all, I want to say that I feel quite overwhelmed by the warmth and appreciation by readers in their first reviews and comments. Chip and I truly appreciate your support. Whenever I tell people that I have co-authored a book, the first question is usually, what's the book about? It might be the question that those of you who have not read the book would like to start with. And it might be the question that those of you who have read the book would like to start with. The conversation is about a few ideas that we believe are worth spreading. And, and ultimately, it's a book about happiness and meaning. What we're going to do today is do a little presentation about a couple of these ideas, and then read excerpts from the book and ask you to join the conversation.
This book is a product of over 20 years of conversations in long drives in the car, late nights having dinner after spending long days working together, and early mornings having breakfast as we've been getting ready to start long days. There are all kinds of things that are not in the book that would make up what we would call our car talk, and that's probably a good thing. But the book is primarily the product of Agnieszka's vision, tenacity, and passion about the ideas that we present there.
So today I'd like you to do a little presentation about character and the pursuit of happiness. Here is a fascinating and intriguing fact about human beings. We are all unique. Here is another fascinating, unique fact about human beings. We are all unique and the same. Through my work and life experiences, and especially through my collaboration with Chip, I've come to believe that understanding human character and the seeming paradox between our uniqueness and sameness is critical to our well-being. It is critical because character directly influences how people find meaning and happiness in life. If you've ever wondered how to tap into those internal resources, how to find that happiness within, how to be happy by choice, here's an approach worth considering. Figure out what makes you tick, and then pursue happiness and meaning accordingly. Come on, I'm expecting a few laughs here. I know what you're thinking. Good thing I didn't pay money to hear the obvious. Is it simple and logical? Yes. Is it doable? Well, we all do that instinctively, but not consistently. And here's why. Pursuing happiness based on who we are as unique human beings can actually get us off track. It's very easy to get confused with all our conflicting feelings and desires and pressures that we feel. So if you give me the benefit of the doubt in about 15 minutes, I will take you on a little journey of self-discovery, and hopefully it will help you figure out what makes you tick and intrigue you enough to pursue that path on your own, with the help of the conversation, of course. So, what makes us tick? All you need to do is look at the people around you. We all have the same body parts, and yet we're all different. Ears, eyes, hair, body build differ significantly. Standard parts make us the same. variations of these standard parts make us unique. And it's exactly the same with our character. Research tells us that just as we have the same body parts, we have the same character components. And again, standard parts make us the same. Variations of these standard parts make us unique. Now, it's easy to see what is our body makeup. How can we see our character makeup? Well, let's do a little bit of exploration and reflection. I'd like you to recall a moment when you suddenly felt under stress, intense stress. Maybe it's that you found that your credit card was missing, or you learned over the phone some bad news, or maybe you heard a siren outside the window. Think about, what did you feel? How did your body react? I'm talking about that first nanosecond, the first second or two before your logical or learned response kicked in. What did you feel in your gut? If you're a human, I assume we have no imposters here. I used to be an alien. I got my American citizenship. If you're a human, you experienced one of 4 possible reactions. It was either fear, anxiety, it was anger, annoyance, it was liveliness, curiosity, or it was calmness. It turns out that we are all wired with one of 4 possible physiological responses. And the way that our body responds to stress is called our temperament. And that is the first component of our character. So, this temperament, how our body responds to stress, becomes our emotional base for life. I told you, I trip over words. It's part of your charms. So forgive me. It becomes part of your emotional base for life, which does not mean that we don't feel any other emotions, but it means that whenever we are under stress, we feel either anxiety, and it's always anxiety, or it's always anger, or it's always that curiosity, liveliness, agitation, or it's always calmness. And since we find ourselves under stress a lot, you probably will agree with me that it's pretty important to understand our temperament and to learn how to manage it. And by the way, we can never change our temperament. We can only learn how to manage it. So please make a mental note. What is your hypothesis? How do you react to stress? How does your body react to stress? You will be able to confirm it as you go on and observe yourself in life. And as Chip says, it's not rocket science. Very simple. Just need to be observant and honest with yourself. All right, so that's the first component of our character. Now let's move on to the second one. This time, I'd like you to take a look at this list and think about which one of these activities would you rather do if you had to spend a whole year doing it. Would it be being in charge of a group or project? Would it be work on completing an interesting, challenging project? Would it be work on a project that involves interesting people? Or work on a project in peace and quiet? Take a moment and think about which one appeals to you most. I'm a little tricky here because what I'm really asking you about is what gives you the greatest sense of satisfaction. Is it staying in control and having personal impact? Or is it staying on tasks and accomplishing goals? Or is it connecting with other people and building relationships? Or perhaps is it analyzing something and in order to truly understand it? And it's a difficult question because all of these things give us a sense of satisfaction, right? But I'm asking you this question because early on in life, when we're small children, we make a decision which we prefer more. We make a decision about a preference. Because as children, we try to figure out which strategy will give us the greatest likelihood to survive and succeed in the environment that we're growing up in. So we make this decision, this preference, and that becomes the psychological motive, the psychological drive that will literally push us into action after our physical needs are met. And motives is the second part, the second component of our personality. Some people look skeptical. I didn't think of it. It's all based on research. So, just as we have only one temperament, we are a composite of these four forces. A desire a need to influence and control, a need to accomplish goals, a need to build relationships with others, and a need to resist change in order to understand something deeper. But because of that preference that we develop early on in life, one is the strongest, one is the weakest, and two fall somewhere in between. And once the decision about the preference is made, that never changes for us for the rest of our lives. We can only manage that key motive, but we cannot change it. And by the way, those of you who have read the book know. Those of you who haven't. By the way, when we make that decision about our preference when we are 18 months old, that's pretty unbelievable. So please make another mental note. Another hypothesis. What is your number one key drive? Again, you will be able to figure it out if you observe yourself in action. You just need to be really honest with yourself, and it'll be confirmed by your observation. And it's very important because that key drive is like a mental addiction. It's like a psychological candy that we desire all our lives. And together with temperament, our key motive is what makes us stick. Together with temperament, the key motive makes us stick. Now, I know you're just dying to find out what are the two other remaining components of our character that are not so important. All right, I'll tell you. They are traits and behaviors. Traits being the thinking, feeling, and habits of thinking, feeling, and behaving, and behaviors being the specific observable actions. Well, they're not significant? Yes, they are significant. Of course they are. But in terms of understanding what's really going on with us, it's the first two that are much more valuable to find out. Because research tells us that we develop traits and behaviors in response as a way of coping with our temperament and our motives. So you can think of the temperament and motives as root causes, and those two, traits and behaviors, as symptoms. Some people, for example, are very aloof because they want to stress their importance as they pursue power. Have you met people like that? Some people are very personable because they want to gather more followers as they pursue their power. Some people are introverted because they have a fearful temperament and anything new makes them anxious. And some people are extroverted because they have a fearful temperament and they want to hide it. So you can see we have the same traits, the same motives, but very different people. And the reason is that there are natural variations in how angry or anxious or calm or driven we are, but also our unique life experiences lead us to develop totally different behaviors in response to the same character components. So as I said at the beginning, we're all unique and we're all the same. So now, moving to the point I was jumping ahead into, how does understanding happiness make me happier? All right, I'll tell you. I have an anxious temperament, and I'm not crazy about it. But it was a relief to figure out that there is nothing wrong with me, at least in that respect. And that the anxiety that I often feel is just how I've been wired. So I no longer feel anxious that I'm anxious, if that makes any sense. And I figured out how to put in place some countermeasures, and I always look for things that will help me relax. So if you have any suggestions for great movies, comedies, let me know. The one that was recently suggested to me was 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. Sounds good. Now, in terms of my key motive, it's task. And I know that whenever I'm very, very unhappy, complaining about it will really do no good. But setting specific tasks and working towards those goals will actually be good medicine for me. And I know that if at the end of my life I want to have a sense of satisfaction, it will not be the parties that I go to, although I love parties. It won't be the recognition that I might achieve, although of course I like recognition. But it will be the sense of accomplishing something that has meaning for me. And also, as a task-focused person, I know that I have to pay particular attention to other people and their feelings, because whenever I walk into the situation, my attention naturally goes to what needs to be done, and that can get me in trouble. But happiness is not just about satisfying the drive, the key motive that pushes us into action. Life is a balance of joy and satisfaction that eventually leads to fulfillment. And here's the flip chart. I have learned that in order to have a truly happy life, we need to remember to take time to create those moments of joy that have nothing to do with our standard components of the character, but rather come from our uniqueness. Something that gives us pleasure. For me, a walk on the beach at sunrise is pure joy every time. Or a cup of coffee with a good European pastry, not too sweet, is something that gives me pleasure. I've also learned that in order to have a truly happy life, we need to make time to reflect on our successes, looking back rather than forward, and allows us to realize how much further we are today than we were yesterday, and gives us a chance to reflect on the meaning of our lives and experience fulfillment. There are, of course, many approaches to finding happiness. For me, understanding character and understanding what makes me tick allows me to pursue happiness more consciously. Another benefit of understanding character is that I don't end up feeling as helpless or surprised or confused as I used to. I know that human behavior is simple and predictable, and that's, by the way, how our first conversation in chapter 1 starts. I'll give you a quick example. My grown-up daughter calls me on the phone, and she snaps at me and cuts the conversation short because she doesn't like something that I said. Am I getting upset in return? No, because I know that she has an angry temperament. If she is stressed, she will get mad. I will get anxious. She will get mad. So what do? I send her a text message. Hey, honey, I see you got upset. You feel stressed. Consider my point when you cool off. Love, Mom. Life can be that simple. Learning how to recognize patterns will make our life easier. Recognizing and knowing patterns allows us to get better prepared, to have greater control over the situation, to understand what's going on better, and to build stronger relationships. intrigued you about this approach to happiness, at least a little bit. And if you decide to pursue it on your own, I can promise you one thing. You will discover that human behavior is simple and predictable, and that each one of us is unique and capable of surprising acts of courage, resilience, compassion, and love. Thank you. We're going to leave this on.
Okay. Before we do, I do want to say two things. One is that this book is not just a product of conversations between Agnieszka and myself, but is the product of conversations with a number of people that have been special and important in our lives. That includes, for me, my wife, for Agnieszka, her husband Jacek, who's back there with the camera, and several other people that are here listening to us now. One is sitting in the front row, and it's Dave Hallquist. Dave has been with Agnieszka and I in, I don't know, 200 different kinds of situations. He is not by name, because we changed the names to protect the innocent. But he is one of the people who is also having conversations with us in the book, and is, along with several other people who I won't name because I know it will embarrass them more than I'm embarrassing Dave right now, provided us with the additional inspiration that has made this book possible, and has allowed us to be sitting up here with you, being very patient with us as we talk. The second thing that I want to say is that this book truly is a product that wouldn't exist without Agnieszka's passion for the topics that are in the book, and for her trait of stubbornness.
What was stubbornness?
Where she would insist that as the book was being written, that we sit down and have additional conversations in order to try and clarify points. And that conversation with Agnieszka over these 20 years, and hopefully for another 20, has been one of the great pleasures and consternations in my life.
I also wanted to say, because this is an interesting fact that came up with in an interview that I've given to the Williston Observer, is that this book took a long, long time to be written, because I first started reading it as a management book, and it was so boring, it was even boring me. But the introduction I wrote as a story of how Chip and I met and how all these models kind of came into my life. And my brother read that introduction and he said, "Oh, this is great. You should write the whole book like this." So I had to rewrite the entire book. It took a lot of perseverance. I'm really happy to share it with you.